They say money can't buy class, but Declan Sterling thought it could buy him anything, including a human being's dignity. He looked at the waitress across the room and saw a target. He saw a nobody. He saw a toy to be broken for sport. He placed a $50,000 bet that he could make her beg before the dessert course was served. He thought he was playing a game. What he didn't know was that the woman pouring his water wasn't just a waitress. She was the one holding the cards, and by the time the check arrived, Declan wouldn't just lose his money, he would lose his entire empire. This is the story of the bet that backfired. The air inside the Obsidian Manhattan's most exclusive supper club smelled of truffle oil, aged leather, and fear. It was the kind of fear that didn't smell like sweat, but like desperation masked by expensive cologne. The patrons here weren't just rich. They were the architects of the city's skyline and the puppet masters of its economy. At the center table, the power table reserved permanently for the partners of Sterling Vane. Capital sat Declan Sterling. Declan was 34, handsome in a predatory way, with eyes the color of a frozen Atlantic wave and a jawline that looked like it had been chiseled by a frustrated sculptor. He wore a bespoke navy suit from Savile Row that cost more than the average American car. Tonight he was bored, and a bored Declan Sterling was a dangerous thing. To his right sat Garrison Ford, a man whose neck was slowly being consumed by his own shirt collar. Garrison was Declan's oldest friend and the CFO of their firm. He was nervously swirling a glass of 1982 Chateau Margaux. "Stop swirling it, Garrison." Declan snapped, not looking away from the room. "You're bruising the wine. It's not a milkshake." Garrison set the glass down. "I'm just saying the merger with Kincaid Industries is shaky, Declan. If the audit comes back with even one red flag..." "The audit is a formality." Declan waved a hand dismissively. "Kincaid is desperate. We own them. Now stop talking shop. You're ruining my view." Declan's gaze drifted past the crystal chandeliers and the velvet ropes, landing on a figure moving through the shadows of the dining floor. It was a waitress. She was struggling. That was the first thing Declan noticed. She was carrying a tray, loaded with heavy porcelain plates, maneuvering through the crowded tables with a slight limp, as if her shoes were a size too small, or her feet were simply done with the day. Her uniform was standard black button-down, black slacks, a bistro apron, but she looked invisible. She kept her head down, her brown hair pulled back in a severe, messy bun, dark circles smudged under her eyes. "Look at that," Declan smirked, nodding toward her. "The quiet desperation of the working class. It's almost poetic, isn't it?" Garrison squinted. "Who, the girl with the heavy tray?" "She's terrified," Declan observed, analyzing her like a stock ticker. Shoulders hunched, avoiding eye contact. She's probably one spilled drink away from an eviction notice. I bet she's thinking about her student loans or maybe a sick cat. People like that are easy to break. "You're in a mood tonight." Garrison sighed. "Leave the girl alone, December." "I'm not going to hurt her," Declan said, his voice dropping to a silky purr. "I'm going to educate her. And you." Just then, the waitress whose name tag read Cassandra navigated past a rowdy table of investment bankers. One of the bankers, a man named Brody, who worked for a rival firm, threw his arm out to emphasize a point. His hand clipped the edge of Cassandra's heavy tray. The tray wobbled. The silverware clattered loudly. Most waitresses would have gasped or dropped it. Cassandra didn't. With a fluid, almost martial arts-like shift of her weight, she dipped her knee, caught the balance of the tray with her forearm, and stabilized it before a single drop of sauce hit the floor. It was a move of startling grace, completely at odds with her exhausted appearance. She quietly apologized to the man who hit her and moved on. Declan's eyes narrowed. "Did you see that?" "She saved the tray." "Good for her." Garrison shrugged. "No." Declan leaned forward. "That wasn't just a save. That was practiced, but she looks like a scared mouse. I hate contradictions, Garrison. They annoy me." Declan took a sip of his wine. "I propose a wager." Garrison groaned. "No, the last time we bet I lost my Porsche." $50,000, Declan said calmly. "I bet you that I can get that girl Cassandra to knowingly pour a bottle of our $2,000 wine onto the floor just because I tell her to. I bet I can make her humiliate herself for a tip. I want to prove that everyone, no matter how noble they pretend to be, has a price tag, especially the invisible ones." "That's cruel even for you," Garrison muttered. "She's just trying to do her job." "It's a social experiment," Declan countered. "If she has dignity, she'll say no. If she's like everyone else, she'll dance for the coin. 50,000, Garrison. Unless you're afraid." Garrison looked at the waitress, then back at Declan's icy stare. He knew Declan never lost. But the girl looked stubborn. "Fine," Garrison said. 50,000, but you can't threaten her. You can only use money and persuasion." "Deal." Declan raised his finger, summoning the floor manager. "Send her to our table." Cassandra Hale hated Table 4. She hadn't even approached it yet, but she knew the type. She had been watching Declan Sterling from the periphery all night. She knew the cut of his suit. Anderson and Shepard bespoke the watch on his wrist, Patek Philippe Nautilus Platinum, and the way he looked at people like he was deciding which organ to harvest first. She adjusted her apron. Her feet were screaming in the cheap orthopedic shoes she wore. She took a deep breath, composed her face into a mask of bland servitude, and walked over. "Good evening, gentlemen," she said. Her voice was low, raspy, and deliberately uninteresting. "How is the Margot?" Declan didn't look at her. He looked at his glass. "It's corked." The table went silent. Garrison's eyes widened. The bottle was already half empty. They had been drinking it for 20 minutes. "I beg your pardon, sir," Cassandra asked. "I said it's corked." Declan turned to her finally, flashing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "It tastes like wet cardboard and vinegar. I'm surprised you served it. Don't you check these things?" Cassandra paused. She looked at the bottle. It was a 1982 Margot, one of the finest vintages of the century. She knew exactly how it had been stored. She knew the provenance, and she knew that Declan Sterling was lying. "I can certainly get the sommelier, sir," she said softly. "I don't want the sommelier." Declan snapped his voice, rising just enough to draw the attention of the nearby tables. "I want you to admit it. You opened it, didn't you? You poured it. Are you telling me you can't tell the difference between fine wine and swill?" He was baiting her. He wanted her to argue so he could crush her, or he wanted her to apologize profusely so he could own her. Cassandra looked at him. For a split second, the dullness in her eyes vanished, replaced by a sharp, calculating glint. It was gone as quickly as it appeared. "I apologize, sir," she said, lowering her head. "My palate is not as refined as yours. I will take the bottle away immediately." "No," Declan said. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a money clip. He peeled off 5 $100 bills and placed them on the crisp white tablecloth. "I don't want you to take it away. I want you to acknowledge your mistake properly." He slid the bills toward her. "Pour the rest of the bottle into the ice bucket. Right here. Admit it's trash. And this $500 is yours. Consider it a training fee." Garrison shifted uncomfortably. "Declan, come on." "Hush, Garrison." Declan kept his eyes on Cassandra. "Well, it's a simple task. The wine is bad. Pour it out. Take the money. It's more than you make in a week, isn't it?" The restaurant had gone quiet. The nearby diners were watching. This was the theatre of the rich, humiliating the help for sport. Cassandra looked at the money. Then she looked at the wine. Technically, pouring a 1982 Margot into an ice bucket was a crime against humanity. But she saw what he was doing. He was testing her compliance. If she refused, he would complain to the manager and likely get her fired for insolence. If she did it, she was his puppet. She reached for the bottle. Her hand was steady. "It is a shame," she murmured almost to herself. "What was that?" Declan asked. Cassandra lifted the bottle. "I said it is a shame, sir, because the 82 Margot is known for its high tannin count, which requires a longer breathing period. Sometimes, to the impatient palate, the initial acidity can be mistaken for vinegar." Declan froze. The air around the table seemed to drop 10 degrees. Cassandra wasn't supposed to know about tannins. She wasn't supposed to know about acidity profiles. She was supposed to be a nobody. "Are you correcting me?" Declan asked, his voice dangerously low. "No, sir," Cassandra said, her voice returning to that flat, subservient tone. "I'm just doing as you asked." With a blank expression, she tipped the bottle and poured the ruby-red liquid worth hundreds of dollars a glass straight into the slushy water of the ice bucket. It glugged away a tragic waste. She set the empty bottle down. "There," she said. "The trash is gone." She didn't touch the $500. "You can keep your money, Mr. Sterling," she said, using his name though he hadn't introduced himself. "I don't take tips for throwing away garbage." She turned and walked away, her limp slightly more pronounced. Declan sat there stunned. The money still lay on the table. Garrison let out a nervous laugh. "I think you just lost the first round, Dec. She didn't take the money, and she just called you impatient." Declan's face turned a shade of crimson that matched the ruined wine. He wasn't used to defiance. He certainly wasn't used to defiance that came wrapped in a knowledgeable insult about wine chemistry. "She knows who I am," Declan muttered, staring at her retreating back. "She used my name." "Everyone knows who you are," Garrison said. "You're on the cover of Forbes." "No," Declan shook his head. She didn't say it with awe. She said it with pity. Declan snatched the money back off the table. The game had changed. He wasn't just bored anymore. He was insulted. "Double or nothing," Declan hissed. "What?" Garrison asked. 100,000. Declan said, his eyes tracking Cassandra as she entered the kitchen. "I'm not just going to make her take a tip. By the end of this week, I'm going to find out who she really is, and I'm going to make her beg me for a job. I'm going to break that superiority complex she's hiding under that apron." "Declan, let it go," Garrison warned. "There's something off about her. Did you see her eyes? That wasn't a waitress looking at you. That was, I don't know, a shark looking at a seal." "I'm the shark, Garrison," Declan growled. "She's just the chum." Declan signaled the floor manager, a sweaty man named Henri. "Yes, Mr. Sterling was everything to your liking," Henri asked, trembling. "The waitress," Declan said coldly. "Cassandra. I want her to serve my private party this Saturday at my estate in the Hamptons. Triple her hourly rate. Tell her it's mandatory." Henry hesitated. "Cassandra, she's very private, sir. She usually refuses off-site catering." "She won't refuse this." Declan smiled a cruel, sharp expression. "Tell her if she refuses, I'll buy this building and turn it into a parking lot. And tell her I specifically requested the lady who knows so much about tannins." As Henry scurried away to deliver the message, Declan looked at Garrison. "Part 2 of the experiment starts Saturday. Let's see how high and mighty she is when she's scrubbing dishes at my mansion." Little did Declan know he had just invited the wolf into the sheepfold. Cassandra Hale wasn't just a waitress who read wine magazines. In a past life, a life erased from Google, but burned into the ledgers of the darkest financial corners of the world, she had a different name. And in that life, she didn't serve men like Declan Sterling. She hunted them. The Sterling estate in East Hampton was less a home and more a monument to excess. It was a sprawling modernist structure of glass and steel perched on a cliff edge overlooking the churning Atlantic. It was designed to intimidate much like its owner. Saturday arrived with a storm brewing off the coast. The sky was a bruised purple, the wind whipping the dune grass into a frenzy. Inside the atmosphere was controlled temperature regulated and tense. Cassandra entered through the service entrance. She had been instructed to wear a specific uniform provided by Declan's staff, a maid's outfit that was archaic, ridiculous, and slightly too short. It was a calculated insult, a way to strip her of the professional dignity of a bistro apron and reduce her to a caricature of servitude. She held the dress up, looking at the head housekeeper, Mrs. Galloway. Mr. Sterling insisted. Mrs. Galloway said, her eyes avoiding Cassandra's. He said if you didn't wear it, you would be in breach of contract. Cassandra didn't complain. She didn't cry. She simply went into the changing room. When she emerged, she didn't look ridiculous. Through sheer force of posture, shoulders, back, chin-high, movements precise, she made the cheap polyester look like high-concept fashion. She wore it like armor. The party was intimate, but heavy with power. Only 12 guests. Among them were the titans of industry Preston Kincaid, the man Declan was trying to acquire, Isabel Archer, a shark-like tech CEO, and Garrison Ford, who looked nauseous as he saw Cassandra enter the room. Declan sat at the head of the long mahogany table watching her. He was waiting for her to crack. He had laid traps. "Champagne," Declan ordered as Cassandra approached. "And don't spill it. This rug is worth more than your life." Cassandra moved with the silence of a ghost. She poured the Dom Perignon with one hand behind her back, the stream of gold liquid hitting the flute without a single splash. "Actually," Declan said, stopping her, "I've changed my mind. I want the 96 Bollinger. Go to the cellar. It's on the top shelf. You'll need the ladder, and be quick." It was a test. The cellar was 3 flights down. The top shelf was 12 feet high. He wanted her sweaty, breathless, and flustered. Cassandra returned in 4 minutes flat. She wasn't out of breath. Her hair was perfectly in place. She presented the bottle. "Too slow," Declan sneered, though he was visibly annoyed by her composure. "Open it. Now." He watched her hands. He was looking for the tremor of a working-class girl, terrified of breaking a $1,000 bottle, but her hands were steady, surgeon steady. She twisted the wire cage 6 times, exactly 6, and popped the cork with a soft, polite sigh of gas, not a loud pop. It was textbook perfection. "Is there anything else, sir?" she asked, her voice devoid of emotion. "Yes," Declan said, leaning back. "We have a guest tonight from Paris, Monsieur Delacroix." He gestured to a man on his left. "He doesn't speak English well. I want you to explain the menu to him, in French. Every detail. Ingredients, preparation, sourcing." The table went quiet. This was the kill shot. Declan knew waitresses didn't speak fluent culinary French. He expected her to stammer, to point at the menu like a child, to be humiliated, so he could step in and save the guest, proving her inadequacy. Garrison closed his eyes. This is too much, he thought. Cassandra turned to Monsieur Delacroix. She didn't look at the menu card. She had memorized it in the kitchen. "Bonsoir, monsieur," she began. The accent was flawless. Not high school French, but a crisp Parisian dialect, with the slight haughty lilt of the 7th arrondissement. Pour commencer, nous avons un carpaccio de Saint-Jacques, arrosé d'une vinaigrette aux agrumes et à la truffe blanche d'Alba. She continued for 3 minutes. She described the searing of the foie gras, the reduction of the port wine sauce, and the texture of the soufflé. She even made a polite joke in French about the weather, causing Delacroix to laugh heartily and clap his hands. Magnifique, Delacroix beamed. Vous avez une prononciation exquise, mademoiselle. Cassandra offered a small, tight smile. Merci, monsieur. J'ai passé du temps en Europe. She turned back to Declan. His face was a mask of shock, quickly hardening into fury. He had tried to paint her as an uneducated peasant, and she had just outclassed him at his own dinner table. You speak French? Declan accused as if it were a crime. A little sir, she said, downplaying it immediately. I pick things up. You pick up perfect Parisian accents, Declan scoffed. Who are you? I'm the waitress, Mr. Sterling, she said, pouring water into his glass. Would you like ice? Declan slammed his hand on the table. The silverware jumped. Stop playing games with me, he hissed, his voice low so the other guests wouldn't hear. You're not a waitress. You're a plant. Who sent you? Was it Kincaid? Is this corporate espionage? I serve tables at the Obsidian, sir. You hired me. You bet on me. Remember. Her eyes locked onto his. For the first time, Declan felt a chill. Her eyes were dark, intelligent, and completely unafraid. Get out of my sight, Declan growled. Go to the kitchen. Stay there until the dessert course. As you wish. As she walked away, Declan drained his glass. He was losing control. The $50,000 bet was no longer about the money. It was about dominance. And right now, the woman in the maid's uniform was winning, but the night was far from over. And Declan Sterling had one more card to play, one that didn't involve wine or languages. It involved the one thing he was sure she couldn't resist, a trap of morality. By midnight, the storm outside was raging, battering the glass walls of the estate with sheets of rain. The dinner had transitioned into the deal. The wives and casual guests had retired to the guest wings or the theatre room. In the main library, a room of dark oak leather Chesterfields and the smell of expensive tobacco, only 5 men remained. Declan Sterling, Garrison Ford, Preston Kincaid the target, Kincaid's lawyer, a weasel-faced man named Silas, and Jared Declan's lead analyst. The atmosphere was thick with smoke and tension. The acquisition of Kincaid Industries was supposed to be signed tonight. It was a hostile takeover masked as a merger. Declan was buying Kincaid out for $400 million. Cassandra was summoned back. Drinks, Declan barked as she entered. Scotch, neat, and stay in the corner. We might need you to shred documents. She nodded and moved to the bar cart in the corner of the library. She was invisible again. Just a pair of hands pouring amber liquid into crystal. She listened. The valuation is solid, Preston. Declan was saying, sliding a thick binder across the coffee table. We've audited your assets. The factories in Ohio, the logistics chain in Singapore. $400 million is generous considering your debt load. Preston Kincaid looked defeated. He was an older man, tired, his empire crumbling around him. Declan, the Singapore assets alone are worth 200. You're bleeding me dry. The market is volatile. Declan shrugged, lighting a cigar. Take the deal, Preston, or I walk and the bank forecloses on Monday. You'll leave with nothing. Silas the lawyer was flipping through the pages of the contract. We have a concern regarding the EBITDA adjustments in Appendix C, Silas said. You've excluded the projected earnings from the new patent. That patent is the future of the company. Speculative earnings, Declan countered smoothly. The patent hasn't been approved by the FDA. It's worthless until it is. My analysts ran the numbers. The risk outweighs the potential. The price stands. Cassandra was polishing a glass. She stopped. She knew Kincaid Industries. She read the Financial Times every morning before her shift. She knew about the patent a new filtration system for industrial waste. And she knew that 3 days ago, a small buried news article in a Swiss trade journal had mentioned that the European Regulatory Board had fast-tracked the approval. If the European approval was in the FDA would follow within months. That patent wasn't speculative. It was a gold mine. Declan was lying or his analysts were lazy. But worse, the math on the table was wrong. She looked at the whiteboard where Jared the analyst had drawn up the projection models. Revenue times 4.5, multiplier minus, debt plus cash on hand equals offer price. Cassandra squinted. The debt calculation included a convertible bond that was set to mature next month. But under the current interest rates, that bond would convert to equity, not cash debt. By counting it as debt, Declan was artificially lowering the company's value by at least $40 million. It was a rookie mistake. Or a theft. Sign it, Preston. Declan pressed, uncapping a fountain pen. End the misery. Preston reached for the pen. His hand shook. Cassandra couldn't help it. The silence of the room, the arrogance of Declan, the defeat of the old man. It triggered something in her. The waitress vanished. The person she used to be stepped forward. The bond converts, she said. Her voice was soft, but in the acoustic perfection of the library, it sounded like a gunshot. Every head turned. Declan froze the cigar halfway to his mouth. Excuse me. Cassandra didn't retreat this time. And she walked out from behind the bar. She walked past Garrison, past the lawyer, and stood in front of the whiteboard. The bond, she said, pointing to the line item Jared had written. The Series B convertible bond issued in 2018. You have it listed here as a liability of $42 million. It is a liability, Jared the analyst snapped. Stick to the ice cubes, honey. No, Cassandra said, her voice sharpening, shedding the rasp and taking on a tone of absolute command. Check the covenants. Clause 14B. If the stock price remains above $12 for 30 consecutive trading days, the bond mandates a conversion to equity. Kincaid stock has been trading at $12.50 for 6 weeks. That $42 million isn't debt. It's equity. You're subtracting money that doesn't need to be paid back. She turned to Preston Kincaid. Sir, if you sign this, you are effectively gifting Mr. Sterling $42 million for free, plus the patent approval in Zurich passed preliminary stages on Tuesday. That adds another $20 million to your valuation. The room went deathly silent. Preston Kincaid dropped the pen. He looked at his lawyer. Is she right? Silas was frantically typing on his laptop. His face went pale. I need to check the bond indenture. I didn't catch the 30-day trigger. My God, Preston whispered. He looked at Declan with sudden fury. You tried to cheat me. Declan stood up slowly. He wasn't looking at Preston. He was looking at Cassandra. His expression wasn't angry anymore. It was fascinated and terrified. Leave us, Declan said to the room. What? Garrison asked. Everyone out, Declan roared. Except her. Preston grabbed his coat. The deal is off Sterling. I'm recalculating, and I'm firing my lawyer. Within 2 minutes, the library was empty. The storm lashed against the windows. Declan and Cassandra stood alone in the center of the room. The air was electric. Who are you? Declan asked. This time he didn't demand it. He asked it with genuine curiosity. Waitresses don't know about bond covenants. They don't know about Series B indentures. They don't know about Zurich patent laws. Cassandra didn't answer. She walked back to the bar, picked up her tray, and resumed her role. I'm just a nobody, Mr. Sterling. Just a girl trying to pay rent." Declan walked over to her. He blocked her path. He was close enough that she could smell the scotch on his breath. "You just cost me $40 million, he said quietly. "I saved you a lawsuit for fraud," she corrected him. "If you had signed that the SEC would have flagged the valuation error during the review, you would have been investigated. Your stock would have tanked. I didn't cost you money. I saved your reputation. What's left of it?" Declan stared at her. For the first time in his life, he felt completely outmatched. He had bet he could break her. Instead, she had walked into his arena, dismantled his business deal, humiliated his analyst, and saved his enemy, all while wearing a maid's uniform. "The bet is off," Declan said. "Oh," Cassandra raised an eyebrow. "Giving up so soon?" "No." Declan smiled, but it was a wolfish, dangerous smile. "I'm doubling it. I don't want to break you anymore, Cassandra. I want to know you. I'm going to find out every secret you have, and when I do, I'm going to own you." "Be careful, Declan," she said, using his first name for the first time. "Digging up the past gets your hands dirty. You might not like what you find." She sidestepped him and walked toward the door. "See you at the restaurant on Monday," she called back. Declan watched her go. He reached for his phone and dialed a number. "This is Sterling," he said into the receiver. "I need a private investigator, the best one in the city. I need a file on a woman named Cassandra Hale. I want to know where she was born, where she went to school, and why a financial genius is serving tables in Midtown. And I want it by tomorrow morning." He hung up. He looked at the whiteboard where she had pointed out the error. He wasn't angry about the money. He was exhilarated. He had finally found a worthy opponent. But he didn't realize that by investigating Cassandra Hale, he wasn't just opening a file. He was opening a grave. Because Cassandra Hale didn't exist. The woman who had just walked out of his house was Alexandra Vance, and 5 years ago, Declan's father was the man who had destroyed her family. Monday morning in Manhattan broke with a grey, oppressive humidity. Inside the 45th floor office of Sterling Vane Capital, the climate control was set to a crisp 68 degrees. But Declan Sterling was sweating. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the ants scurrying along Fifth Avenue. Behind him, seated in a leather chair that cost more than a Honda Civic, was Kessler. Kessler was a private investigator who didn't advertise. He was the man you called when you wanted to find dirt on a senator, or when you wanted a mistress to disappear quietly with a payoff. He was expensive, thorough, and devoid of empathy. "You're not going to like this, Mr. Sterling," Kessler said, tossing a manila folder onto Declan's glass desk. The sound echoed like a gavel strike. Declan turned. "I don't pay you to tell me what I like. I pay you for the truth." "Who is she?" "She's a ghost," Kessler said, leaning forward. "That's the first thing. The Social Security number for Cassandra Hale belongs to a woman who died in a car accident in Ohio 3 years ago. The driver's license is a high-quality forgery. The rental agreement for her apartment in Queens is under a shell corporation, registered in the Cayman Islands." "She's a criminal?" Declan asked, a flicker of hope in his chest. If she was a criminal, he could crush her with the police. "No," Kessler shook his head. "She's a phantom. But everyone leaves a trace if you dig deep enough. I ran her face through a facial recognition software used by Interpol. It took 6 hours, but I got a hit." Kessler opened the folder and pointed to a grainy photograph printed on glossy paper. It was an old photo, maybe 10 years old. It showed a young woman, barely 20, standing next to a distinguished older man on the steps of the New York Stock Exchange. She was smiling, radiant, dressed in a graduation gown from the Wharton School of Business. Declan stared at the photo. The woman was younger, softer, without the harsh lines of exhaustion that Cassandra wore like a mask, but the eyes were the same. Dark, intelligent, dangerous. Her name, Kessler said, is Alexandra Rourke. Declan felt the blood drain from his face. Rourke, as in Jonathan Rourke. The very same. Kessler nodded. Jonathan Rourke, the CEO of Rourke Industries. The man whose company your father Thomas Sterling hostilely acquired 5 years ago. The man who lost everything in the raid, his pension fund, his family home, his reputation. Declan sank into his chair. He remembered the Rourke takeover. It was legendary in the firm. It was the deal that had cemented the Sterling legacy. His father had used a ruthless short and distort strategy to tank Rourke's stock price before buying the company for pennies on the dollar. It was legal technically, but morally bankrupt. Jonathan Rourke committed suicide 6 months after the acquisition. Kessler continued, his voice monotone. Jumped off the George Washington Bridge. His wife died of a stroke a year later. Their daughter Alexandra was a rising star at Goldman Sachs, a quantitative genius. After her parents died, she vanished, cleared her bank accounts, resigned from her job, and fell off the map. Declan looked at the photo of Alexandra Cassandra again. She's not a waitress, Declan whispered. She's an avenging angel. She's a liability, Kessler corrected. I looked into her recent activity. She hasn't just been serving tables, Mr. Sterling. Every restaurant she's worked at in the last 2 years has been a favorite haunt of your firm's partners. The Obsidian wasn't an accident. She positioned herself there. She's been listening, watching, gathering data. Declan felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. She corrected the Kincaid deal on Saturday. She saved me $40 million. Or, Kessler said, tapping the desk, she established trust, the classic con. You give the mark a small win so they trust you with the big loss. She didn't save you because she likes you. She saved you so you wouldn't get bogged down in an SEC investigation over a small fish like Kincaid. She wants you fully operational for whatever she has planned next. Declan stood up, pacing the room. The arrogance that usually fueled him was replaced by a frantic energy. He wasn't scared he was too narcissistic for fear, but he was rattled. She wants to destroy me, Declan realized. She wants to do to me what my father did to her father. Based on her profile, Kessler closed the folder. She doesn't just want to destroy you, she wants to dismantle you. She was a math prodigy, Mr. Sterling. She specialized in algorithmic trading and systemic risk. She's not going to come at you with a gun. She's going to come at you with math. Declan stopped pacing. A slow, cruel smile spread across his face. She's playing a game, Declan said. A game of high finance, and she thinks she can beat me in my own house. She's already inside the house, sir, Kessler warned. Then we invite her further in, Declan said. He walked over to the window and looked at the city that he believed he owned. She thinks she's the hunter, but she's forgotten one thing. I have the capital. I have the power. And now I have her name. He turned back to Kessler. Keep watching her, but don't touch her. I'm going to handle this personally. What are you going to do? The Sterling Foundation Gala is this Friday. Declan said, his eyes gleaming. The press will be there. The board will be there. The entire financial elite of New York. I'm going to invite her. And when she arrives, thinking she's one step ahead, I'm going to reveal her identity to the world. I'll paint her as a mentally unstable stalker, obsessed with a 5-year-old grudge. I'll discredit her before she can make a move. Declan laughed a short, sharp bark. I bet she's a nobody. Remember, I'm going to prove it. Once the media is done with the crazy waitress daughter of the disgraced CEO, she won't be able to get a job sweeping floors, let alone trading stocks. He picked up his phone. Get my car. We're going to lunch. At the Obsidian. Cassandra Alexandra knew he was coming before he even walked through the door. She was standing at the service station, polishing silverware. The lunch rush was beginning, the hum of conversation filling the room. But the moment the heavy oak doors swung open, the atmosphere shifted. Declan walked in, not with Garrison this time, but alone. He moved with a new kind of swagger, a predatory confidence. He wasn't looking around the room with boredom anymore. He walked straight toward her. "Table for one," Declan said, stopping right in front of her. "We have a wait list, Mr. Sterling," she said, not looking up from the fork she was polishing. "I own the mortgage on this building," Declan said softly. "I don't wait." He sat down at the nearest empty table, a small two-top near the window. He gestured for her to come over. Cassandra set the silverware down and walked to his table. She kept her face impassive, her posture slumped in the tired waitress pose she had perfected. "Sparkling or still?" she asked. "Cut the act, Alexandra," Declan said. He dropped the name like a bomb. He waited for the flinch. He waited for the gasp, the widening of the eyes, the panic. He got nothing. Cassandra didn't freeze. She didn't drop her notepad. She simply stopped writing, lifted her head, and looked him dead in the eye. The slouch vanished. The exhaustion melted away. In an instant, the waitress was gone, and the woman from the photograph, the shark, was sitting across from him. "Sparkling it is," she said, her voice dropping that raspy, subservient pitch and returning to its natural, cool alto. "You hired a PI. Took you longer than I thought. I expected you to figure it out on Saturday." Declan was taken aback by her calmness. She wasn't cornered. She looked relieved. "You're bold," Declan sneered. "For a woman using a dead person's social security number. Necessity is the mother of invention," she replied, pulling out a chair and sitting down opposite him, a massive breach of restaurant protocol. "So you know who I am. Congratulations. You solved the puzzle. What now? Calling the cops? And miss the fun." Declan leaned back. "No, I want to know what you think you're doing. Do you really think you can take down Sterling Vane? You're one woman with a grudge and a tray of dirty dishes. I have billions in assets. I have armies of lawyers." "Assets are liquid, Declan," she said, using his name with familiar contempt. "And lawyers are expensive. You destroyed my father because he was over-leveraged. You found the weak point in his debt structure, and you hammered it until the walls came down. It was a brilliant, heartless move." "It was business," Declan shrugged. "It was murder," she said. The word hung in the air, heavy and cold. "But I'm not here to debate ethics. I'm here to settle the ledger." "You're delusional," Declan laughed. "You have nothing. You live in a shoebox in Queens." "I have enough," she said enigmatically. Declan leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Here is what's going to happen, Alexandra. You're going to finish your shift. Then you're going to go home, pack your bags, and leave New York. If you're not gone by tomorrow, I release the file. Fraud, identity theft, corporate espionage. You'll spend the next 10 years in federal prison." Alexandra smiled. It was a terrifying smile. "Is that your best move, blackmail?" "It's a winning move." "I decline," she said. "Excuse me." "I said no, I'm not leaving." She stood up. "In fact, I was hoping for an invitation to the gala on Friday. I hear it's the event of the season." Declan stared at her. This was exactly what he had planned to lure her there. But she was inviting herself. It threw him off balance. "You want to come to the gala?" Declan asked slowly. "I think it's only fair," she said. My father helped build the foundation you're celebrating, before you stole it." Declan's mind raced. If she came to the gala willingly, it would make his public humiliation of her even sweeter. He could do it on stage. He could mic drop her destruction in front of the cameras. "Fine." Declan smiled, a shark sensing blood. "You want a ticket? You got one. Friday night, the Plaza Hotel, black tie. Don't wear the apron." "I wouldn't dream of it," she said. "Just remember." Declan stood up, buttoning his jacket. "When you walk into that ballroom, you're walking into my world. And in my world, you're still just a nobody. I'm going to destroy you, Alexandra. Publicly, permanently." "We'll see," she said. Declan walked out of the restaurant feeling a surge of adrenaline. He had won the confrontation. He had rattled her cage, asserted his dominance, and set the stage for her final execution. He didn't see what happened after he left. As soon as the door closed, Alexandra didn't cry. She didn't panic. She reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a small high-tech device, a signal cloner. She had cloned Declan's RFID security badge when he had leaned in to threaten her. She walked to the back of the kitchen, past the confused cooks, and dialed a number on her burner phone. "I have the encryption key," she said into the phone. "He took the bait. He thinks I'm coming to the gala to make a scene." "And are you?" a distorted voice on the other end asked. "No," Alexandra said, looking at the clone of Declan's keycard. "I'm going to the gala to distract him. While he's busy gloating on stage, I'm going to be accessing the Sterling Vane mainframe. He thinks the gala is his victory lap. He doesn't realize it's his funeral." She hung up and looked at her reflection in the stainless steel prep table. "Checkmate in 3 moves, Declan," she whispered. Friday was coming, and the rich man who bet on a nobody was about to learn that a nobody is the most dangerous thing in the world, because nobody sees them coming. The grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel was a kaleidoscope of diamonds, black silk, and champagne bubbles. It was the crowning jewel of the social season, the Sterling Foundation Gala. Declan Sterling stood on the balcony overlooking the sea of elites, a glass of 1928 Krug in his hand. He felt like a Roman emperor, watching gladiators prepare for the slaughter. Tonight was not just a celebration of his firm's charity, which was merely a tax haven masked as philanthropy, but a celebration of his absolute power. He checked his watch. 8:00 p.m. "She's late," Garrison Ford muttered, standing beside him. Garrison was sweating again, tugging at his bow tie. Maybe she's not coming. Maybe she ran. "She'll come," Declan said, his eyes scanning the entrance. "She has too much pride. She thinks she can walk in here and stare me down. She doesn't realize I have the microphone." Declan patted his breast pocket. Inside was a speech he had written himself. It started with praise for the industry and ended with a cautionary tale about a deranged stalker named Alexandra Rourke, who was currently posing as a waitress to infiltrate their circle. He had security teams on standby to escort her out the moment he pointed his finger. It would be a masterclass in reputation destruction. "There," Declan smiled. "Showtime." The heavy double doors swung open. The room, buzzing with the chatter of 300 billionaires, went momentarily silent. Not because they knew who she was, but because of how she looked. Alexandra Vance walked in. She wasn't wearing a waitress uniform. She wasn't wearing a maid's outfit. She was wearing a gown of midnight blue velvet that hugged her frame like a second skin off the shoulder, with a slit that revealed a leg that didn't limp. Her hair, usually messy and bound, cascaded in dark, glossy waves over her shoulders. She wore no jewelry except for a simple silver locket. She didn't look like a nobody. She looked like the owner of the building. She walked through the crowd, the sea of tuxedos parting for her. Heads turned, Whispers started. "Who is that? Is that a model?" "I think that's Rourke's daughter." Declan descended the grand staircase to meet her in the center of the room. A spotlight followed him naturally. "You cleaned up well," Declan said, his voice amplified by the acoustics of the room. He stopped 3 feet from her. "The dress must have cost you a year's worth of tips." "It belonged to my mother," Alexandra said, her voice calm, carrying effortlessly over the hush of the crowd. "She wore it the night you and your father celebrated your hostile takeover of our company." A ripple of uneasy laughter went through the crowd. "Nostalgia is a weakness, Alexandra." Declan stepped closer, invading her space. "I told you, this is my world. You're just a tourist." He turned to the crowd, raising his arms. "Ladies and gentlemen," Declan boomed. The room fell silent. "Thank you all for coming. Tonight is about transparency. It's about legacy. And speaking of legacy, we have a surprise guest tonight." He gestured to Alexandra. "Many of you might recognize this young woman. Or perhaps you don't, because she's been serving you coffee at the Obsidian for the last 6 months. Her name is Alexandra Rourke, daughter of the late Jonathan Rourke." Gasps, murmurs. "She's here tonight." Declan continued, his voice dripping with mock sympathy. "Because she believes that my firm Sterling Vane is responsible for her father's failure. She has been stalking me, harassing my staff, stealing corporate data." Declan looked at her, his eyes cold. "It's a sad story, really. A story of a mind unable to accept reality. I've called the authorities to get her the help she needs." He signaled to the security guards at the perimeter. "Please escort Miss Rourke out, gently." 2 burly men in suits started moving toward her. The crowd watched, captivated. It was the public execution Declan had promised. Alexandra didn't move. She didn't look at the guards. She looked at Declan, and she smiled. It was a sad smile. "You're right, Declan," she said. She reached into her clutch. "Gun!" someone screamed. But she didn't pull out a gun. She pulled out a small, sleek remote control. "Tonight is about transparency," she said into the silence. "So let's be transparent." She pressed the button. Behind Declan, the massive projection screen that was displaying the Sterling Vane logo flickered. It turned static grey, then black. Then a spreadsheet appeared. "What is this?" Declan hissed, turning around. "Cut the feed. Cut it." But the tech booth was locked. Alexandra's team friends from her old life, quant hackers she had stayed in touch with, had seized the system. The spreadsheet zoomed in. It wasn't just numbers. It was a ledger. "That," Alexandra said, her voice projecting clearly, "is the shadow book of Sterling Vane Capital. It contains the records of the 42 offshore accounts you use to hide the debt of the companies you acquire." The crowd gasped. This was financial heresy. "And this," she clicked the button again. The screen changed to an email chain. "This is an email from you, Declan, to your CFO, Garrison Ford, dated 3 days ago. Subject, the Kincaid fraud." The text on the screen was massive. "From D. Sterling to G. Ford, message. Hide the bond conversion. If Kincaid figures out the equity trigger, we lose 40 million. Bribe the auditor if you have to. I want that company for scrap." Preston Kincaid, who was standing in the front row, turned purple. "You son of a bitch!" he roared. Declan's face went white. He looked at the tech booth, screaming, "Turn it off, I'll kill you. Turn it off." "I can't turn it off, Declan," Alexandra said softly. "Because it's not just on the screen. It's live streaming." She pointed to the cameras in the back of the room, the press cameras Declan had invited. "I tipped off the SEC, the FBI, and the Wall Street Journal 3 hours ago," Alexandra said. "They're watching this live. The link to your private server is currently trending on Twitter. You're not just exposed to this room, you're exposed to the world. Declan looked at his phone. It was vibrating incessantly. Calls from his lawyers, calls from the bank, calls from news outlets. "You nobody," Declan stammered, his composure shattering. He lunged at her. He never made it. The doors to the ballroom burst open again. But this time, it wasn't a guest. "FBI nobody move." A dozen agents in windbreakers stormed the room, weapons drawn. They weren't there for the crazy stalker. They were there for the man on stage. Garrison Ford tried to run toward the kitchen exit, but was tackled by an agent. Declan stood frozen. The screen behind him was now scrolling through a list of his crimes: embezzlement, wire fraud, insider trading, racketeering. An agent marched up the stairs, grabbed Declan's arm and spun him around. "Declan Sterling, you are under arrest for securities fraud and conspiracy." The agent recited the Miranda rights. As the cuffs clicked around his wrists, cold, heavy steel, much tighter than a Rolex, Declan looked up. Alexandra was standing 10 feet away. The chaos moved around her like water around a stone. She looked serene. "You bet $50,000 that you could break me," Alexandra said, walking over to him as the agents held him. "You bet that everyone has a price. You were wrong." She leaned in close, so only he could hear. "My father didn't kill himself because he lost his money, Declan. He killed himself because you took his name. You made him feel like a nobody. Tonight I'm returning the favor." "I'll get out," Declan spat, though his eyes were wide with terror. "I have money." "Check the screen, Declan," she whispered. "I triggered the clawback clauses in your own contracts. As of 10 minutes ago, your assets are frozen. You're broke. You're not a rich man anymore. You're just a nobody." The agents shoved him forward. The cameras flashed, capturing the image that would be on every front page tomorrow. Declan Sterling, the King of New York, being dragged away in handcuffs, weeping. Alexandra watched him go. She turned to the stunned room. The elite of New York were staring at her with a mix of fear and awe. She had just taken down the biggest predator in the jungle. She didn't stay for the applause. She didn't stay for the interviews. She walked down the stairs past the frozen waiters, past the shattered Preston Kincaid, who was nodding at her in gratitude. She walked out the front doors of the plaza, into the cool night air of Central Park. She took a deep breath. The air smelled of rain and exhaust, but to her it smelled like freedom. She took the silver locket from her neck, opened it, and looked at the tiny picture of her father inside. "It's done, Dad," she whispered. She hailed a yellow cab. "Where to, lady?" the driver asked. Alexandra looked back at the hotel, the lights flashing, the sirens wailing. She smiled. "Somewhere quiet," she said. "I have a lot of reading to do. I'm thinking about starting a new business." "What kind?" "Consulting," she said. "For the invisible people." As the cab merged into the traffic of the city that never sleeps, Alexandra Vance, the waitress, the heiress, the avenger, disappeared into the lights. She had won the bet, but more importantly, she had proven that dignity isn't something you can buy. It's something you fight for. And Declan Sterling, he learned the hardest lesson of all. Be careful who you step on your way up, because they might just be the ones waiting to kick you on your way down. And that, my friends, is the story of how Declan Sterling learned that the most dangerous person in the room is often the one pouring the water. It's a powerful reminder that wealth is not a measure of character, and silence is not a sign of weakness. Declan thought he was playing a game with a nobody, blinded by his own arrogance. He failed to see the intelligence, the resilience, and the history hiding behind a simple uniform. In the end, his ego wrote a check that his reality couldn't cash. The waitress he mocked didn't just serve him dinner. she served him justice. This story teaches us a vital lesson. Treat everyone with respect, regardless of their status, job, or bank account. You never know who you are talking to, what battles they are fighting, or what power they hold. The person you underestimate today could be the one who holds the keys to your fate tomorrow. True power isn't about how many people you can control. It's about how you carry yourself when you think no one is watching. Wow, what a journey. If your heart was pounding during that final scene at the gala, hit that like button right now. Did you see that twist coming with the bond conversion? Let me know in the comments below. Would you have taken the $500 tip, or would you have poured the wine, just like Alexandra? I want to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this story of justice and revenge, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. We release new gripping stories every week, and you do not want to miss the next one. Share this video with a friend who needs a reminder that the underdog can win. Thanks for watching, and remember, never judge a book by its cover and never bet against a nobody. See you in the next video.